Hey, everybody. My name is Samantha Adams. I'm one of the co-hosts of the Counterpoise podcast, and we would like to welcome you to our podcast today. I'm here accompanied by one of my other co-hosts. Malika is not here today, but you want to go ahead and introduce yourself, E?
Yes, this is Everett Stevenson. I'm the co-host of the Counterpoise podcast, and today we are getting ready to jump into a new topic for you guys today. We're kind of going into this in the following up after the World Cup, which a lot of people watch. It was in Qatar recently, and Argentina won. I believe they beat France for the finals. And one of the things that we kind of saw within that was their superstar, Cristiano Renaldo, who was one of the leaders in that team and in that victory. Had like a bidding war, if you will, for his services following the World Cup. And one country that won was Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia offered him, I want to say, somewhere around hundreds of millions of dollars to play for them for a couple of years. And so one thing that came up in controversy was the fact that Mr. Ronaldo, who is not technically married, it's my understanding, but has a girlfriend, kind of what we will call a communal marriage, if you will, wife with a few kids. And questions started to come up as to would he be able to stay, in Saudi Arabia, which has strict rulings on cohabitation, with his wife while he's there on contract. And so there's questions that kind of swindled around that. And we wanted to kind of base our conversation on today about that. Should individuals who have a certain skill set be allowed to usurp rules, if you will, in order for them to continue to live their life the way that they have been? Or should rules always be enforced against any and everybody?
So, that she's his living girlfriend and they share children. I just want to make sure that that's clear. They're not married. But they do live together and they have children. And so the thing of it is this: Saudi Arabia, it's not even just the fact that they have this rule that says you can't cohabitate. You can be prosecuted for cohabitation in Saudi Arabia because, they have different types of laws out there. Different countries, let me just back up a little bit, give you guys a little bit of background. All countries don't have laws the way the United States do. We are a common law country. There are several other countries that have common law laws aside from the United States. Great Britain is one of them. India is another, just to name a couple. And Saudi Arabia, I'm not sure if it's a Muslim nation, but Muslim law is definitely very different from that of common law. And so they, under certain, in different countries, the way that their laws are executed are just different. They have different laws, and a lot of them are rooted in religion, including here in America, right? We have laws that are rooted in our religion as well. Well, not our religion. Let me rephrase that, because we do have freedom of religion here in the United States. But there are laws that are rooted in Christianity, just based off of the fact that, our country was founded after British rule, and Great Britain was a Christian country, right? So when after the bidding war that he was just talking about took place, you would think that if he's gonna go play for that country, he's got to live there. It's not like that's not a commute, right? To go from one country to another just to go to work every day. And so, or to leave his family behind either, because it's for a number of years. This contract is for a number of years. So, in him going there, of course, you're going to bring your family. Generally speaking, some people won't, but most people will, especially when you're talking about years. Um, and it's just very interesting that Saudi Arabia chose to bend its rules. Um, the question then becomes is did they choose to bend the rules for him, or are they going to bend the rules for everybody? You know, I think that right there is a really important distinction, because if it's just they're just bending the rules for just him, then it's like, I get the fact that he's a celebrity and he's gonna generate a lot of income for the country, just based on the type of player he is, because he's a striker, and so that means he's a really good soccer player, right? And so, with that being said, him generating all that money for the country, I think helping to generate all that money for the country, I think is something that has to be considered. But on the flip side, is it really fair, right? It's not really balanced and fair if he's allowed to break the rules, no consequence, and nobody else is. Now, if everybody else is, which I read in an article in Newsweek, they said that they've been becoming more lax on that rule, providing that they're not really prosecuting people who are cohabitating without being married, because that's what cohabitation means, right? It means that you are living with your significant other and you are not married. You have to be married. That's the rule in Saudi Arabia. And so, it's not, I don't think it's really fair if they allow him to do it and nobody else, right? Because it's cool when they do it. It's a problem when I do it type of situation, right? And so, you know, I think that right there is part of the interesting part, because, like, again, their rules in Saudi Arabia are incredibly strict. Like, they didn't let people go to the movies for years until Black Panther came out. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that was Saudi Arabia. So, and I think it was like 30 years or something crazy. So, their rules are real strict, and they're very, very conservative based on their faith. And I mean, we can dive into a whole other discussion
Well, yeah,
about
I wanted
women
to.
and everything else, but that's not what we're here to talk about today.
Yeah, I was just gonna go with that and just say, like, I think when we look at it, though, we have. I definitely think that some regard should be held towards the fact that, again, we he was recruited to come there, and I think when a nation or somebody like that, or a country rather, may ask of someone to do something, then you kind of get a little more of like a little more bidding grounds. You know what I'm saying? To speak on, right? Like, what comes to mind when I think of this situation is like, if I can't remember exactly what I was watching. There was like a movie once, and they were like, "Yo, look, our country needs you to do such and such and such and such. Like, you have a particular skill set that we believe would, really help advance, our country in a certain type of way. And so we wanted to see if you would be willing to, come provide your services." And within that, you get the opportunity to say, well, hey, I don't want to pay taxes for the rest of my life, or I would like, $5 million for my services, or whatever the case may be, right? And so you get this opportunity to kind of, negotiate, what it is that you want in return for your service. And I mean, I think this is kind of like one of those examples, right? Where it's like, hey, he's coming. He's like, listen, I want, these type of funds. And then also not to have to worry about, being prosecuted or being worried about in the event of, based on my, family structure and how he has it set up. So, I definitely think it's interesting, but I don't see that as being the first time that a country may have done something like that. Although I do think that this is more interesting because it's an entertainment value type of situation, where it's like, hey, this is what this individual is choosing to do. And he's providing an entertainment, source, as opposed to saying some type of military type of support, or, top secret, knowledge that he gains that could help with certain situations.
Yeah. Um, so some of the pros and the cons, I wanted to just kind of move on, like the concessions that are being made are crazy. I mean, anytime you have an athlete go to a different place, the concessions are always great perks. Well, I'm not gonna say always, but they're great perks that you get as a entertainer of some sort when you go to live in a different country, right? So, I mean, this is a huge concession based on the fact that they don't want to prosecute and they're allowing him to do it. Um, I personally am not really against cohabitation, but at the same time, the rules are the rules, right? And I don't think that it's okay to just bend the rules for one person and not others. As far as the pros and cons are concerned, for him, he gets to be with his family. That's like the number one pro, right? Like you get to have your family there with you, have your children there, his girlfriend. He's working, he's making money, and he's pretty much living a fairly free life, right? He's able to do things that he wants to do, whatever, whatever. Now, some of the cons that I wanted to kind of touch on, they're not really for him. The cons are more for the rest of his family, right? Like his children may be fine, but the girlfriend, like, what does that do for her? How does that make her look? Is she required to abide by all of the religious laws that they have in Saudi Arabia? Because I believe she's of Hispanic descent. And so is she going to have to constantly be covered up when she goes outside? Is she going to have to wear the proper garb and attire when she goes outside? Um, what is that going to look like for her? Is she going to be able to attend the games the way that she wants to? Like, there's a lot of questions I just simply don't know the answers to. It doesn't mean that, you know, these are all bad things, but it just means because there are just cultural differences. What is that cultural adjustment going to look like for her and for their children, right? And so I think that it's important to consider that too when you're talking about going from a place that's far more free to going to, when I say free, I mean because you have the right and ability to be able to wear what you want, do what you want for her, right? To go to somewhere where it's a little bit more control. Well, I'm not going to say a little bit, it's much more controlled, especially when you're talking about the rights of women and things of that nature. I think those are some of the cons. I don't know what that's going to look like for their children because I don't know if they have boys or girls, but I do know for her, there's going to be a huge adjustment for her based on the cultural norms that are going to take place for her when she moves to Saudi Arabia.
Yeah. As far as some of the adjustments, I think that, like you said, there'll be some as far as, dressing and the way that you carry yourself. But I don't necessarily know if she kind of if that would be a major, change to maybe her current wardrobe. I haven't really followed this family. So I'm not really familiar with how they conduct themselves or carry themselves. But I do know though that one thing that I have seen is that they typically kind of have a pretty strong union in which they are comfortable with everything that they do and are able to withstand a lot. So I know he loves his children and show a lot of love towards them. So I definitely think that the foundation is there, but as far as her and some of the things that she may have to adjust to, and that could be a question of if she chooses to be there full time like that. It could be a situation where she can remain in the UK and he can be there during the season and come home, outside of the season. I
Mm-hmm.
don't necessarily feel like that's something that you that anyone who's in a relationship would prefer. But I think when it comes into the decision of you giving up individual things for the sole purposes of just being around somebody when you guys could have the means to be able to do both.
Mhm.
Some people may choose to, hey, I love you. We'll come visit every so often, blah, blah, blah. But I might want to stay where it's a little more comfortable. I might want to stay where I have family and I have friends who can maybe help with the village of raising these children. So, I think that was other factors in addition to some of maybe the customs that the country has that could weigh in on her decision on if she's going to, kind of follow behind him in this journey.
Yeah, because I mean, at the end of the day, you're absolutely right about that. Yeah, I agree with that. But I think they said that she's gonna go. But what you don't know is what does that adjustment look like for her? Um, I think if she's comfortable with it, more power to her. You know what I'm saying? I think that because I mean, when at the end of the day, it's gonna be about your kids, right, and raising your children as a family. Um, and they have special laws in Saudi Arabia for women. Like I'm looking at a website right now called amnesty.org, and it says since 2019, Saudi Arabia has eliminated some of the restrictions imposed through the male guardianship system. Although women aged over 21 the right to obtain a passport and travel without permission from a male guardian by allowing women over 18 to register the birth of a baby. Let me see. The birth of a baby, the death of a relative, as well as marriage and divorce. While these reforms have made positive impact for women, the authorities' failure to abolish the male guardianship system is entirely and instead is in its entirety instead of codifying it in law risk undermining the modest gains. So what that means is pretty much they've made some changes to some of the laws for women where they had to pretty much their father their husband was treated more like a dad. Like they have to get permission from them to get a passport, get permission from them to travel. They had to get permission, to get married, get a divorce. They even had to get permission to freaking, when you say register a baby, I'm assuming that's like getting a birth certificate and all that other kind of stuff. And so they've essentially abolished those rules, but those rules are still on the books. They haven't done anything to remove those rules from the books. And so, I mean, just coming as a free thinker to a country that has those types of rules and laws, like she's gonna have to get consent from him to do a lot of things. But the question then becomes is she going to have to, right? Because they're not married. And so I think that in part is one of the reasons why those laws existed, is because it provides an easier way for the men to be able to act as guardians to these women. And so, I mean, I think, like I said, I think it's an interesting point as to whether or not she's going to be willing to do it. I think more will be revealed. You know what I mean? And I think it's going to be interesting to see what happens next. What do you think about that, E?
No, I definitely agree. We look forward to see, what this case is going to, I mean, what the situation is going to bring forward. Um, if, there will be any questions about that, if there'll be traditionalists, maybe from within the country to, speak on the issue and, speak out against it. But I know most of the time when we look at these nations, especially in like the Middle East, generally there's not a lot of free speech given to individuals to speak against, the current regime. So I doubt that we may have a big uprising in that regard. But nonetheless, though, it's still interesting to see, how that situation may play out.
Yeah, and I think her experience is definitely going to be an interesting one. So more will be revealed with that. I guess, my final thoughts on all that are, I think that if the country is enforcing that rule, then it needs to be enforced for everybody. And I don't think that just because he's a celebrity and makes money that he should be treated as if he's above the law and given certain concessions and privileges that other people don't get. But if they're not fully enforcing the law, then have at it. You know what I mean? I just say that because you know, in the United States, we operate in fairness. Well, we allegedly operate in fairness, right? So, I think that, that's where my mindset comes from. It's like, you can't, what's good for the goose got to be good for the gander. If that's how what the law says, and do what the law says. I don't think that it's a good idea to just go ahead and just give people special treatment because they got a job that can generate revenue. I just don't. And then as far as like some of the pros and cons are concerned, I just think that it's going to be interesting to see how she responds to some of the pros and cons. I'm sorry, to the changes, the cultural changes, because again, she's Hispanic, she's of Hispanic descent, and Hispanic people are traditionally Catholic, so that's a totally different faith than the Muslim faith. And so I think that it's going to be really interesting to see what happens with her. I would honestly be interested in seeing what her experience is like. Maybe she should write a memoir or something like that about her experience out after she goes through it. Because I do think that it'll shine a lot of light and attention on some of the ways that that things are done over in Saudi Arabia. And I think it'll be also interesting to see how some people adjust. So more will be revealed, in my opinion, as far as the pros and cons are concerned. And I also think that you made that interesting point of, they also could make the decision to, live there part time. And I think that that also definitely could be something that they choose to do. And I don't really see anything wrong with that either, as long as their relationship can withstand it.
Mhm.
Did you have any final thoughts, E, before you jump into the book of the month and stuff?
No, again, I definitely think it's interesting, but I think it leads me kind of more into the quote of the week, which is one by Future, and he said, "You do what you want when you're popping," and I think that is very much indicative of this situation because, as we can see, again, you win the World Cup, you do the good things that you do, and if I'm not mistaken, wasn't it? It was a country. If it wasn't it Saudi Arabia who beat, what I'm saying, Argentina earlier on in the World Cup, I believe. And then there was just
Maybe.
like, and I believe the team, like I think like the king or whoever the president is or the ruler of their nation, stated that they were going to give everybody on the team like Rolls Royces for for their victory. So I
I
remember
think
seeing
so.
something like that early on, but nonetheless, I think you know it goes back to the quote, with him that you are awarded, and I think this is another lesson that can be said on this show as well. Like as much as people don't want to kind of think that the rules don't apply, a lot as much as people would like to think that the rules apply to everyone equally. This is an example of which sometimes they just may not. It's all dependent upon who you are and what you have to offer sometimes. And if you have a skill set that happens to be something that's in demand, you are granted a lot of more leeway in the workplace and as we can see, even in the work environment, or whatever the country that you're working in, you may receive more leeway as well. I also wanted to go into our business of the month, which is, it's Muse, the Miami Urban Contemporary Experience. Again, which is like a local area out here in Miami, a local group out here in Miami that puts on different events, displays. They have different little exhibits that they'll show, things of that nature. That's out here that kind of shows, heritage and different aspects of the diaspora. And then, of course, our book is from Sam Greenlee, and it is The Spook That's Set Next to the Door. Another excellent read. So we definitely want to promote those two companies and businesses as well. Promote that company as well as that book. I want to thank you guys for all coming in and check the show out. I want to remind you guys that we also perform our What's Up Wednesdays every Wednesday on Instagram Live. And then you can catch these episodes here live on YouTube on Saturdays at around 1 o'clock. And our socials will be posted here shortly after this. So if you guys have any questions, comments, anything that you want to see us talk about, you can continue to submit anything that you have to either one of our socials or leave a comment here on YouTube. We definitely get back to you on that. And yeah, Sam, that's pretty much all I have. You want to close this on out?
Yeah. So again, we want to thank you guys for tuning in. Shout out to Malik, our third co-host. We know that he had some reasons why he can't be with us today, and that's okay. Hopefully everything will be back to normal come next week. With that being said, yes, again, I want to just reiterate what E said. Make sure you tap in with us on our What's Up Wednesdays at 8:30, and tap in with us. You already know if you're here at 1:30 Saturdays, right? Also, too, I'm on Tagged. I don't know if you guys have ever heard of it. I didn't live stream today, but I try to live stream not every day, but just about. If you want to follow me there, my tagged name is Sam I Yam. That's SAMMIYAMM. All separate. 3 things, right? So make sure you go ahead, fave me, all that good stuff, and we can talk about it. And again, just like E said, if you guys ever have a topic or you want to be a part of our show, please feel free to go ahead and let us know. You can DM us on Instagram. You can go ahead and you can, send us a message. You can come into our IG, whatever you need to do to let us know. We are always open to your topics and for special guests because we love y'all. So again, thank y'all so much. And if we didn't say Happy New Year last week, I want to wish you guys a Happy New Year. Hope 2023 brings all beauty, prosperity, and good fortune your way. So thank y'all. We love y'all, and we will see y'all on Wednesday. Oh, don't forget to tell a friend to tell a friend.
Peace.